Good morning. We're waiting for a quorum like we have done recently. And so we're going to start out today with our program reports out of order, but it allows us to go ahead and hear the reports. We believe we will have quorum in the next few minutes. So we're going to go ahead and start with a presentation on mobility management services. Good morning, Marilyn.
Day. It's a beautiful day outside. One of these days we ought to try to find a way to have board outdoors. Do you think we could do that? But anyway, thank you for giving me a moment to fill you in. So I wanted to kind of spend a little time with you today talking about our senior services. And as a reminder, this is a full suite of services that are funded by our Older Americans Act with the grant with the Area-Wide Aging Agency Partnership. Grocery shopping every week, meal site access to all the congregate meal sites in Oklahoma County for seniors. We do food box deliveries in partnership with the food bank. And then, of course, we have our non-emergency medical services. I've given you some ridership data where we ended last fiscal year. So far, through the first 2 months of this year, we've already had over 6,000 trips in these programs. So this is one of those areas where I'm sure you've heard the news about the silver tsunami, the baby boomers aging, and we're seeing that come to life in our senior programs. We are looking diligently for other funding. We have some exciting things over the next 12 months that we're going to be sharing with you, and we're just excited to see the program continuing to grow. And I also wanted to point out to you here, the ladies up in the corner, that's Carrie Wheatley and Becky Nolan. They manage this program in both Oklahoma County and Canadian County, managing these trips and making sure the seniors stay connected to their community. We've talked a lot about our CDGB.
Can I ask you a quick question about that? So why not Cleveland County?
Say again?
You said Canadian County and Oklahoma County, but why not Cleveland County?
That is a very good question. So the Area-Wide Aging Agency here in the central Oklahoma area is responsible for the funding for this Older Americans Act in 4 counties. Oklahoma County originally was the only county where the transportation dollars in that program were separated out from all of the other services. In Logan and Cleveland County right now, that money is all still bundled together in what they call an umbrella grant, which means if we were to apply for the funding for transportation in either Cleveland or Logan County, we would have to be able to provide umbrella services. And as much as I love my job, I don't want to run a daily meal site. We don't have the capacity for that. We are having some conversations with everyone that's involved in this project, as well as the people that are involved in the 5310 assumption about whether that is the best way to move forward with Older Americans Act dollars, given that we're building a coordinated network. So we're hopeful that those grants will change during the next cycle, and the transportation dollars will be pulled out so that we could put a grant application in for Cleveland County as well.
Yeah. So there are 2 reasons I ask, and one of them is I am a resident of Cleveland County, but the other one is we have a large portion of Oklahoma City's population that is in Cleveland County.
Yes, ma'am.
And so is that something we should pursue as a legislative issue? Is that something that the agency could be influenced by legislative action?
I don't think it would need legislative action per se. More, it's an internal decision about the way they structure the funding. So maybe some advocacy efforts, and maybe some meetings with that group to just kind of discuss through. I'd be happy to talk with Jesse offline and get some meetings set up if you'd like.
Sure, that sounds great. Is this something where if you live in Cleveland County, you cannot access these services? Or we are not able to provide this service?
So to kind of address what you're discussing, because I think for those that don't know, Oklahoma County ends at Southwest 89th Street.
Yeah.
And so anybody living southwest of 89th Street is not necessarily included in this. We have worked with Area-Wide and with the city of Moore to give us enough dollars to actually hit the people that are living in our city, because the people that have the Cleveland County grant are aging services of Cleveland County, and they simply don't have the bandwidth of the vehicles to come up into Oklahoma City and get those people in Cleveland County. It's one of those classic examples where we have to allocate the money based on populations and lines on a map, but the lines on a map actually serving the end user often creates some challenges. So we do partner with more. The only thing that we offer south of 89th Street is medical transportation, and then we have one grocery shop route down there that helps the seniors down there get to the grocery store. We don't cut them off just because they're south of 89th Street. So
Good to know. Asking for a friend. Yeah.
yeah,
Thank
trying
you.
to be a good neighbor.
And are there income requirements for any of this, or we just serve anyone who's over that particular
ma'am.
age? Okay,
No,
thank
this
you.
is strictly age-based, 60 and over. It is also open to individuals with disabilities, provided we aren't at capacity. So people under the age of 60 that have a documented disability can take advantage of these. Now, if we get to capacity, we're not allowed to deny a trip for a senior for somebody under the age of 60. But so far, we've been able to juggle those and be able not to have to deny any trips yet. You're welcome. We recently saw the City Council approve the Community Development Block Grant Agreement with us to provide some funding for our homeless and low-income programs. Last year, we distributed over 64,000 one-day bus passes. In the first 3 months through September 30th of this year, we're at 11,653 passes already. So we will definitely surpass last year. We are looking at additional funding opportunities to try to bolster this program, because in addition to funding that bus pass program, it also funds an emergency overnight taxi service for urgent need. It's one of the only services that we provide mobility 24/7, 365. It also supports our share fare program for seniors and individuals with disabilities. We're currently working with about 80 agencies with that, and we do have a waiting list of about 13 agencies. We simply ran out of funding before we had finished allocating bus passes to everyone that applied. This is just a quick reminder of the eviction mitigation project. Excuse me, this is one of the first ones we've done of this kind. Arnall Family Foundation graciously provided us $18,000 to provide one-day bus passes through a QR code. That QR code goes out with an eviction notice letter so that the individual can attend their eviction hearing. We have recently got access to the QR code reporting software, and we are going to be bringing back at my next report some utilization numbers on this. We are also waiting for our partner agency to send us information on the exact number of eviction notices that went out since we started this program. So we're excited to see how this impacts that and helps people stay housed. Let's talk a few minutes about Embark Well. So Embark Well serves all the MAPS 3 senior health and wellness centers. This program, as you can see from that graph of the historic ridership since we launched it in 2019, has just absolutely taken off. We have actually recently applied for a small grant from the Oklahoma City Community Foundation. We have not heard about a funding award yet, but we're hoping that grant will allow us to continue to expand this program, and again, prepare for that influx of seniors as individuals age in Oklahoma. The population of people over the age of 65 is supposed to increase by 42% between now and 2030, which is really not that far away. So we're really trying to be able to be sure that we are positioned correctly when that ridership really starts to rocket up, that we can help individuals. So far this year, doing really good. We've almost done 1,300 trips in the first 2 months. We are updating the case study that we did back in 2020 on this program. Back in 2020, we found that 4 out of 6 of the individuals that we followed for a year reduced their A1C scores, and actually were able to reduce their medication dependence in order to control their diabetes. So we think that's a really important thing. We are working with the Healthy Hopeful Community Collaborative here in Oklahoma City on a diabetes mitigation project, and we're going to be leveraging Embark Well and hopefully some funding, additional funding from the Community Foundation. The Climb Ride program is going very well. As a reminder, this started out as a transportation innovation grant with the Arnall Family Foundation several years ago. It has been so successful that it is now a permanently funded program within DHS Child Welfare in Region 3 Oklahoma County. In last fiscal year, nearly 5,000 trips. We're currently serving 100 families in Oklahoma County, and we have gone through our entire waiting list. We have 2 brand new coordinators, LaTanja Roberts, we call her T. She's a former transit professional. She comes to us with a background from DHS as a case manager there. And then we also have Adrian Harold. Adrian also came to us from DHS, so she's been our partner through Climb Ride all the way through the launch, and we're excited to have them, the 2 of them, take over this program and continue to grow it. Expanding Climb Ride into transition age youth that are aging out of foster care. We did our soft launch on this with our 10 pilot youth on October 1st. We're really excited. The goal of that pilot program is to gauge overall trip volume, to develop out the program. We're engaging in some person-centered design with a partner from the Community Transportation Association of America in Washington, D.C. She'll be here in Oklahoma City at the end of this month to meet with the case managers at Pivot, as well as to have one-on-one interviews with the youth, because the goal is to take what we learned about Climb Ride services and embedding someone in child welfare, and then massage the parameters of that program so that it is doing the same type of innovative improvements and outcomes with the transition age youth. So it's a 3-year project, and we expect full launch before Christmas, and we will be serving all of the youth that are living in Pivot's tiny home communities. These are our 3 currently contracted partnerships, Palomar, Remerge, and Hope House. Last year we did about 5,480 trips for all 3 of them. They kind of phased in throughout the course of the 2023-2024 fiscal year. This is our first quarter running all 3 programs full-time, and in the first 3 months of this year we've done 2,783 trips for these 3 agencies. Our 5310 funding stream. We assumed this on October 1st as well. We like to do things in bulk, so we decided to plan everything for October. I'm kidding, but that's just the way the schedule kind of bounced out. Obviously, we have the ACOG approval complete. The governor has issued his designation change letter to Region 6 for the Federal Transit Administration, and it has been accepted. They've reviewed and finalized our program management plan, and we are live and running right now. Our SOPs are about to run through all the approval processes, and we will be launching our first application for funding under 5310 on November 1st. I did bring someone with me as part of this 5310 program. I wanted to introduce to you Ariel Carroll. Ariel is our first mobility navigator working with the statewide mobility management program that ODOT is developing. Her role is to connect individuals to resources and resource agencies to each other so that we can close additional transportation gaps. She's been with us for a couple of months now, doing death by PowerPoint training and learning everything there is to know about the social service landscape in Oklahoma County and in our general regional central area. She will actually physically start providing services officially on November 4th, although she is already starting to interact with some of our citizens and provide some referrals and resources through that. You have an item on your agenda today that I could not be more excited about. We are signing a contract to put in, if you approve it, I should say, with EcoLane to update our mobility and paratransit management software. This is going to be a game changer for my group and for the agencies that we serve. We always try to be super efficient with the money that we're entrusted with. This is going to allow us to do that on a global scale and not have to do it on paper and pencil, because many of these programs, you may not realize, we actually run them on paper and pencil on a spreadsheet with a tablet and a vehicle. We don't actually have dispatch software for most of the mobility programs. So we've selected the vendor. Implementation kickoff is Monday on the 7th. And then, of course, just as a friendly reminder, we'll also be redoing the call center on a FY24 ICAM grant that we received as part of the South May remodel. So we will have a next generation soundproofed call center to improve our customer experience. And with that, I will take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? James?
Did you?
No, go for it.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Love your work. I'm excited about the transition age conversation, and I'm just curious, have we had a chance to work with the cities? I want to get the language right here. It's our Youth Action Board. They're the folk who, I was just looking at a press release here, So you might recall in 2022, City of OKC awarded HUD funding to metro nonprofits aimed to prevent and end youth homelessness. And this was where CSU Youth and Hope Community Services received most of the funding, which was $3 million in community funding. So I mention this because a year ago when we hosted the homelessness meetup at Tower Theater in Ward 2, one of the things we learned, it was Youth Homelessness Awareness Month, and the closing keynote, one of the things that they emphasized in their remarks is that it's important for us adults to prioritize bringing those youth who've experienced these sorts of issues like homelessness, foster care, these sorts of things, but prioritizing listening to them and what their needs are. And that's something the city is doing, I think, in this instance, where this board is made up of youth who were previously unhoused, and they're really good at understanding what the youth are facing. So I'm just curious, are we having conversations yet in terms of our youth homelessness demonstration program and the that youth program, make sure I get the link, the Youth Action Board?
Right. So the intent of this project with Arnall is obviously to do what we did when we did this in child welfare. We started with a small population to test our model. And in child welfare, that was the family tree program, which is kind of similar to what CSU and Pivot does in that it's a full wraparound service model. So the intent here is to start at Pivot and not stop there. So the first year is, yes, just going to be Pivot, us working out the details of that. But then this is a 3-year project. And so that's when, in year 2 is when we'll start reaching out beyond Pivot, connecting with this group, connecting with CSU, seeing if we can replicate this and find funding to sustain it through beyond the 3-year grant project. So it's almost like a stair-step type thing. We will get there, talking with the Oklahoma Juvenile Bureau and others, the Office of Juvenile Affairs. But right now we want to focus on that one population and see if we can tweak this program model to improve their outcomes. And then once we've stabilized it and figured out that this is how this works and this is how much this is going to cost per person per month, then we'll start rolling it out to other individuals, maybe even expanding it all the way out into CSU.
That's wonderful, and I understand the kind of, micro into the macro, but specifically it's this Youth Action Board. They were the ones who chose CSU and Hope to be the recipient of those funds. So I think this stakeholder group, have y'all had a chance to engage them yet?
No, but I think that you and I might need to talk offline so you can connect me.
Okay, I'm just looking at this press release, and I think you're gonna love it, because it's just this moment where the youth will be able to engage with you, and they'll be able to say it better than I can, and with your knowledge and theirs.
Yeah, and maybe if we can connect here in the next couple of weeks, we can set aside a couple of hours of time for our person-centered design expert that's coming in, because she's going to be here for 2.5 days. Maybe we can set a block of time up where she also meets with this group and kind of gets their perspectives as well. Because the key to the person-centered design working so well is talking to everybody. So she would be more than willing to meet with them.
I think Jamie Caves with the city, who's doing our homelessness coordination work, I think she would be way better at connecting everybody than I would be, but I think that's the right person.
Well, yeah, well, we'll definitely get that taken care of offline. I appreciate you mentioning it.
No, thank you, and thank you for this great work.
Oh, are there any other questions for? Okay.
All right, thank you guys.
very
Have a
much.
wonderful weekend.
Okay, well, we have a quorum, so I'll officially call the meeting to order. We have one item from the chairman, and that's a resolution to appoint Jesse Rush as Administrator and Secretary of the Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority. I don't know that there are any questions. Does anybody have any questions about that? If not, Heather, do we have a motion? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion is adopted. Congratulations, Jesse Rush. Okay, item 3 on our agenda is residents to be heard. I don't think we have any. So moving on down to approval of our minutes from the September 6, 2024 COPTA board meeting. Is there a motion to approve? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. Oh, motion passes. Okay, item B is minutes of the September 27th special meeting of the COPTA Finance Committee. And I wanted to go ahead and explain that the Finance Committee reviewed the contract agreement we have with Tyler Media on their the bus shelter advertising and the expenses that Tyler assumes for our bus shelters and bus benches, and what Embark also, the expenses that we absorb. And we reviewed that and felt like that it seemed to be an equitable agreement, and it's one that will grow as we get the 500 additional bus shelters from MAPS 4 that are coming online here in the next few months, I believe, this next year. And so with that, we didn't approve. We just felt like that there was no need to take it any further, that we felt like that the system in place was one that we could live with and go forward with. So with that, is there a motion to approve the minutes? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. Moving on to item 5, which is our consent docket. There are 4 items on the consent docket. Are there any items that the trustees would like to consider individually? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent docket? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. Moving on to items for individual consideration. Item A is to receive Beck Design's preliminary design report for the renovation of the Embark Administrative Building at 2000 South May Avenue, and authorize Beck Design to prepare final plans and specifications. Jesse?
Yeah, good morning. Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, trustees. So this item, like you said, this is to receive the preliminary design report and authorize Beck Design to enter into construction documents. I want to take a moment to kind of give a little bit of background of how we got here, right? So if you think about Embark and its growth, we moved into the facility at 2000 South May, late 90s, 97, 98. When we moved into that facility, we had about 126 employees. That included operators, maintenance staff, admin staff. When we first moved in, we occupied maybe half, probably a little bit less than half of that building. And as we've continued to grow, we now occupy 100% of that building. And so we continue to grow, and we've gotten to a point to where we often, in several of our offices, we have 2 to 3 people in a single office, right? So again, thinking about the growth of Embark, we are currently sitting at nearly 400 employees. So we have grown quite a bit since we moved into that building. And then this item specifically, so as we continue to grow, we identified that we need to do something with that building to maximize the space, because we have some offices that are 20 by 20, and then we have some offices that are maybe in 10 by 11, right? So there's no consistency there. So back in late 2021, we entered into a contract with Howard & Associates to come in and do a design concept for the building. We worked with them for about a year and a half, couldn't quite get to an agreement for that design, and then we transitioned to Beck Design, March of 2024, and over the last 6 to 7 months we've been working with them. We finalized the floor plan, and that's in your packet here today. As far as presentations go, we have Kristen Torkelson here that's going to give a presentation to kind of talk about what we've done in the interim as far as folks moving to Santa Fe Depot to free up some space. And then after that, Beck Design is here to go over the preliminary design. They'll show the floor plan, and they'll also show a few renderings and talk about the schedule and the budget for the project.
Yes, good morning. So as Jesse has said, we basically have outgrown our space at 2000 South Main. So we have relocated last month some staff over to Santa Fe Station, and we did planning, finance, procurement, marketing, and business services. So back in 2022, before we had started doing the headquarter remodel, I looked into the possibility of leasing some office space temporarily. So here are 3 different examples of different buildings, office spaces, were they furnished, were they not furnished. You can see the square footage, you can see the cost per square foot. And in the end, we decided that probably just wasn't the best use of our funds. So here's the Santa Fe move and floor plan. We already own the building, so it was a bonus. So you can see here the layout for where everybody is sitting. This north street here, is E.K. Gaylord, and then you have Pinketzel over to the west. And then we have additional meeting spaces down here at the bottom. There's 2 meeting spaces, and then we have 2 conference areas upstairs, which is super helpful because we only have 1 conference room at South May. So we're having a lot of our meetings over at Santa Fe. Here's the rendering of the systems furniture that was installed. You can see the front entrance over there by the orange chairs. So this is a sample of one of the cubicles that was installed. And the good thing about this is that we can reuse all of this for the new building that's going to be built to the south of our current building. This is an example of a supervisor's office, and it also has a sliding door for privacy. There's a little meeting table there as well. This is just a view of the other side, so you can see all the storage that's available. And then also in this building, we added a bunch of security cameras, also over on the Amtrak side, because that's where our ADA ramp is and door. So these are the cameras that are in the inside, the floor plan that I showed you. This is the back wall. This camera covers the front doors. And then we also added badge access. So this is our front door. This is also where the doorbell is, so anybody who comes, just go push that button. Jerry or Heather will let you in, maybe. This is the upper area. So I'm sure you all have been to Santa Fe, but this is the historic part of the building. And so we were very limited as to what we could do. We kept all of the systems furniture that was in there. But as far as like the noise, unfortunately the acoustic panels up there were installed wrong, so it's very quiet, but we looked into mitigations for this area. This is Armando's. Thank you, Armando. This is a noise machine that we use for sound masking upstairs, as well as fans. And then in the lower area, because it wasn't historic, all of these little yellow circles are circling a sound emitter. So basically, these are installed in the ceiling. A company called AVL did this. And so this room is basically a giant concrete box, except for maybe a few sheetrock walls. So when you install the systems furniture, it helps because you have fabric on the panels, but it's still kind of echoey. So basically, the company comes in, puts these emitters in, and then they tweak. It's kind of like a background noise, kind of like a white noise machine for the whole area. So you could have a conversation and the person over here can't hear you. So people aren't bothered by everybody talking or on the phone. So here's our South May renovation funding sources. You can see we have a couple of grants in here. Marilyn had mentioned the ICAM grant that we'll be using for the call center. We also have ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan Act. We have CAPA reserves. And then we have our capital improvement plan. So total for this would be $5.3 million, almost 5.4. And then this also includes $240,000 in furniture that can be repurposed to the new headquarters building to the south of our building. And then this is our Santa Fe relocation funding sources. You can see the majority of this is ARPA funds, $523,000. And then only $38,000 in CAPA reserves, so for a total of $562,000. So our current expenditures, this is what we've paid Beck so far to design our new The remodel of our headquarters, our current building, 367,000. And then the Santa Fe Depot relocation, the ARPA funded one, is 475,000. And then estimated remaining is about 78,000. And then here today from Beck, we have Emily and Zach and Dan, and they're going to give a quick presentation on construction and schedule for our remodel. Does anybody have any questions for me, though? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Kristen.
Good morning. I'm Dan Grudek with Beck Design, and I'll be walking you through this presentation really quickly. So what you're looking at right now is the existing floor plan of the space. It's very much something that looks like it's been grown into, and spaces have been modified. I believe there's currently some people that are working out of closets that were previously storage. But there are quite a few issues with the existing layout, and there are some major issues with the critical systems for the space. So a big part of the project is really looking at those critical systems such as mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and how to simplify those and then make them useful long into the future. And then as we looked at the spaces, we wanted to make sure that they were flexible as this may become something else in the future, or if you have needs for larger training spaces. So what we'll look at next is the first phase. So since we need to make sure that people are staying in this building throughout construction, we needed to look at phasing. So the first phase was really looking at shifting a majority of the staff to the left side of the building and giving the contractor the ability to upgrade as many of the critical systems as possible in that first phase. We'd be looking at placing all new mechanical units, and then we'd be looking at doing a new plumbing core as well. Second phase, everyone from the first phase would shift over, so everything in the dark gray is actually what would be built out in that first phase. So you'd be looking at all new restrooms that meet ADA requirements for all of the staff in the building, and those would also be able to serve a lot of the larger spaces for large training events as well. And then the left side would get remodeled in that second portion, and we foresee that being a quicker phase just because you'd have that critical systems of the infrastructure in place at that time. So looking at the final floor plan at the end of construction, your entrance generally stays in the same space. We did very little work to the exterior of the building with a big focus on making sure we can spend the money on getting those critical systems upgraded, but then also correct sizing a lot of the office spaces for their needs, but then having large open spaces for the different groups to function out of. There's an emphasis on higher quality lighting and then acoustics as well for a lot of these spaces because they are large spaces with quite a few people in them. Looking at kind of going around the floor plan to the right, you'd have more of the executive suite, and then moving up to the plan north, you'd have HR. Wrapping around, you have dispatch and an all-new call center, which really would give them kind of a state-of-the-art approach. All-new operators lounge to take care of the drivers, and then a new kitchen space, and then a large training room that will really give them a lot of functionality. There are 3 conference rooms spread out throughout this, which that'll be a nice addition for them. And then again, the large training room, we're looking at the ability to have that split so that they can have 2 additional spaces as well. We're kind of looking at this as an 8-month construction timeline. So we're thinking 5 months for the first phase, which I believe would give them a longer time period to get the rooftop units installed, track down some of the plumbing, and really work through all of those discovery items. And then the second phase, we're looking at about a 3-month construction timeline. We wanted to keep it aggressive. As this is all an interior remodel, there shouldn't be any concerns in terms of rain delays and weather concerns. Looking at the project budget, we were looking at originally a 4.1 million. Where we're at right now is around 3.8. And there is contingency in there as well. So, I mean, what we did to develop that budget was to reach out to local contractors. We don't share the drawings with them, but we reach out on individual items to look at what current projects are seeing in terms of some of these larger costs. What's pretty heavy on this project is going to be your mechanical, electrical, and plumbing costs. So what we've done is reached out on similar projects to a variety of contractors and then kind of found what that average is and applied it to this project. Again, they have not seen drawings, but I mean, it's a best case in terms of what we're seeing on historical costs at this time. Looking at the interior design, it's a mid-century modern aesthetic, which kind of goes with the original building design. So this would be your front entry lobby. The goal was to use the funding as best as possible, so we wanted to do a strong focus on making sure all the spaces work in terms of size and getting those systems in place, but then we wanted to do careful punches of design throughout the space. And then this would be the new employee lounge and break room towards the north of the building for the operators and the staff of the building. I believe that is the end of it. Are there any questions, concerns, thoughts?
Anybody have any questions? It looks exciting.
I do have a question. One of the things that I think is important for the employees is security. Are there security upgrades included in this?
So there would be all new camera systems going in place, and then one thing we're looking at right now is as we aren't doing much to the exterior of the building, what we're looking at is upgrading those doors around the perimeter of the building to have stronger access controls for the space as well. And then some of the wings have different doors that would also be under access control in regards to, like, the HR department would have their own access controls as well.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
So is there a motion to receive the design and we're authorizing the Beck Design to prepare final plans and specifications? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, or please vote electronically. Motion passes. Item B is a resolution authorizing the sole source purchase of repair parts for the handrails at the bus rapid transit platforms, including equipment, supplies, services, repair, labor, and replacement parts with Avenue C Glass LLC, estimated at an annual cost of $75,000 from October 4th this year through October 3rd, 2029. Jesse?
Yeah, so like you said, this item is a sole source agreement with Avenue C Glass. So back in March, we had one of our BRT platforms had some rail damage, or like guardrail damage done to it. And so we reached out to 3 different vendors to see if they were interested in being a provider of that railing. And we only received one back, and that was Avenue C Glass, which also just so happened to be the subcontractor to our general contractor for the BRT project. So this item has an estimated annual cost of $75,000. Now that is only if needed, right? So if that would only be if there's repairs needed. And the funding sources there are our operating fund and our capital reserve fund.
Okay, are there any questions or comments about this item? If not, is there a motion to adopt? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. Item C is professional service agreement with EcoLane for paratransit mobility service trip scheduling and program management software systems for COPTAs plus paratransit mobility management programs and planned future microtransit services at an estimated cost of $891,260 effective October 4th, 2024 through October 3rd, 2029. Jesse?
Yeah, so like Marilyn said during her presentation, this is a big one for us. This is a literal game changer, right? So as Marilyn said, you know, we often, when it comes to scheduling trips for the Paratransit Mobility Division, essentially are pen and paper, right? Or tablets in the vehicles to be able to do those trips. As we continue to grow, we're always looking for innovative ways to improve processes. And back in 2021, the FTA issued a Integrated Coordinated Access and Mobility Grant. Its acronym is the ICAM grant. So in 2022, Marilyn and her team applied for that grant. We were awarded $400,000 in the ICAM grant, and that included $325,000 federal share and $175,000 of local match that we approved at the board. In 2023, toward the end of 2023, we issued a request for proposals. We had 4 proposers come back. We went through our procurement process where we interviewed each one of those proposals, did demos with those proposals, and when we came out of that process, we ended with EcoLane being the best product out there for us. And so we're recommending moving forward with this. Year 1, there's a $394,000 startup and implementation cost. And then years 2 through 5, we're looking at $124,000 each year. Now there is an offset there, right? So we currently use a trapeze and pass program, roughly about $40,000 each year. That should help offset some of that cost. But we're very, very excited about this. Another item that this program takes care of is not only does it help us schedule our paratransit trips, but it helps us schedule all of our mobility management trips. But we've also set it up for the future. And so thinking about MAPS 4 microtransit that's going to be coming online, this program also allows us to be able to schedule those trips. So it's really a all-encompassing program.
How long will it take to get the software installed and up and running?
Yeah, well, if it was up to Maryland, probably 2 weeks, but it will likely take probably about 2 months to kind of get everything going, and then there'll be kind of like a pilot process going through, making sure everything works out. So we anticipate being fully up and running probably first part of the year.
Good. That sounds great. Any comments or questions about this item? If not, is there a motion to approve? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. Item D is amendment number 3 and renewal number 1 to DeWitt Investment LLC DBA Elite Protection Services, estimated annual cost of $910,000 from October 4th, 2024 through October 3rd, 2025. Jesse?
Yeah, so a little bit of history here. So if you think about when we launched the OKC streetcar in 2018, we kind of changed how we received our fares when it came to that mode of transit, right? So with the streetcar, you purchase your fare at the platform, and then you board the streetcar, and typically the way most transit agencies work is that you have a fare inspector that would come through and check your fare with that type of mode of transportation. So we entered into a contract with Elite Services in late 2018 to essentially provide fare enforcement, fare inspections on our OKC streetcar. As we continue to grow, and especially as we were coming out of COVID, we identified that we needed some security at our transit center. And so in 2020, we amended our agreement with Elite to allow them to provide security services at our downtown transit center, at several of our other locations, and also our OKC streetcar TPSS, our traction power substations. So they'll go around and provide security inspections of those substations. But we also knew that with the Rapid Northwest coming online, that we would anticipate doing fare inspections on that, and that was included in that agreement. And we also, with us doing operations in Norman, we included that in that agreement. And so that allowed us to essentially be able to provide security at all of our different locations and fare inspections on our Rapid Northwest. With this amendment number 3, so ever since we started our agreement in 2018, all the way through 2024, they've been at the same rate of $22.10 per hour. which is, in the grand scheme of things, a pretty good rate for us. As we were going through looking at the amendment process, we went through and compared that rate to other CLEAT certified security, and we are of the opinion that this is a great rate, especially the new rate of $26.40 per hour. And so we are recommending to the board to move forward with this amendment and the renewal. And if you have any questions.
Any questions or comments about this item? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Can I
Oh.
thanks.
Go ahead.
Just for the public record, a clarification. It's my understanding these aren't armed security guards. Is that correct?
That's correct. They are unarmed.
Good. Two, this is streetcar, bus rapid transit, regular bus fleet, transit center, the substations. This is not just prioritizing one for security. Okay, good. Just wanting to make sure, because I'm already hearing some folk have, kind of, wait, what's going on here? And so I wanted to, in a public setting, just kind of clarify that aspect of it. So, because that would be important to me. I'm not really interested in having a bunch of armed people being like, do you have your ticket? So anyway, thanks.
So if I could just add a little bit more clarity to that. So we use data to base where our security guards go, right? So we track everything that happens on our system, and if we start to see trends of certain areas trending upward, we'll move those security guards around to those certain areas.
So I also want to add that I completely agree with you about the fare enforcement piece of this, but given what we've seen with operator safety lately, I also want there to be something that we're doing that kind of spreads the word that we're going to protect our operators, our employees who work at the transit center, all of those people that I really think face more risk than ever before. And so I really think this is a good step for our employees and really our passengers too, because one of the things that you hear about, I don't want to ride the bus, it's just not safe, and we want to dispel that. We want to have people feel safe when they're our customer. So I think I agree completely with the unarmed piece of it, but I think it's important for us to have that protection for people too.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. And anything else? Questions, comments? If not, is there a motion to approve item D? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion approved. Item E is to authorize the administrator to settle without admission of liability in the case of Chantel Sessions versus PCI Municipal Services, and authorize the administrator and legal counsel to execute necessary settlement documents and/or enter into executive session on advice of municipal counselor to receive confidential communications from its attorney concerning the above pending action. Is there a motion to move this to executive counsel? To move. The board would like to hear executive. Yes. Is there a motion?
I would move to go into executive session.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to go into executive session. We will do this at the heel of the docket.
Okay.
And so.
As long as no one needs to leave early. Okay, so I would like for us to go into executive session now then.
Okay.
Just because we won't
Pa-
have the opportunity to do that if we lose a quorum.
Okay. So this is item E, and is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
It's been moved and it's been seconded. Let's vote individually.
Yes.
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 Okay, motion passes. In addition to that, we'll move into item F, which is authorize and direct the municipal counselor to prepare and file any and all necessary paperwork to effectuate settlement on behalf of COPTA without admitting liability in a claim of Maria Luna, and/or enter into executive session to receive confidential communication concerning the above claim. Is there a motion to,
So moved.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded to enter into executive session now? And,
Yes.
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
Yes.
okay. We will be back in a minute. Okay, so we are officially back out of executive session. So on item number E, we want to have a vote on authorizing the administrator to settle without admission of liability in the case of Chantel Session.
I make that motion.
Well, we're going to do it electronic.
Awesome.
It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. Then on item F is we would like to authorize and direct the municipal council to prepare and file any and all necessary paperwork to effectuate settlement on behalf of COPTA without admitting liability in the claim of Maria Luna. Is there a motion to approve? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically.
If there's any way we can keep you for 2 more items to ratify claims and payrolls.
Motion passes. So item 7 is ratification of claims and payroll. Are there any questions or comments on that? If not, is there a motion to ratify? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. Item 8 is to receive our financial reports, and yeah, we will go ahead and go over it, but let's go ahead and receive our financial reports for the month ending August 31st. It's been moved and seconded.
And I lied, one more thing, receive program reports.
Motion
It
passes.
was a bait and switch.
Now, we need a motion to receive our financial, our program reports. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye, or vote electronically. Motion passes. So we are going to officially lose our
Councilman Trustee Cooper, I appreciate you so much.
quorum at this point, but we will continue to hear our financial reports. Suzanne?
Exciting. It's like watching a video game or something like that. So I don't think I've seen that before. So welcome to fiscal year 25 financials. I haven't been up here in a few months, so I'm going to keep it pretty brief, pretty high level. I've got a presentation for you. This is something new. I was just kind of thinking about how I might be able to present it a little bit easier to follow than having to search through dozens of lines of information. So I've put it on the screen, but you also still have the report in your packet if you want to look at the detailed information. And so I just want to also comment on the financial report that with the conversion to a new financial software system, we're still working through some nuances, I'll call them. So some of the information on this report is still preliminary. And we also have not closed out our fiscal year 24, so there might be also some changes once the books get closed on FY 24. So I'm going to keep it pretty high level and give you a general sense of where we're at. We're just 2 months into the year, so not a lot of material things to report out today. But just wanted to make those opening remarks about the information in the packet. So transportation operations, page 2, our revenues are exceeding our expenditures by $1,561,000. Our total year-to-date revenues are $7.5 million. So we're ahead of budget on our revenue collections by 12%. And our expenditures are $6 million, and we're under budget by 6%. So on this slide, I've got a couple of yellow highlighted lines. I think I will need to make that yellow a little darker in the future. It doesn't show up very well on the screen, but I'm going to talk to you about fair media sales and also miscellaneous revenue. So those are underneath the revenue section of your report. So you'll notice that the fair media sales, the budget for year to date is $168,000, and we've actually collected $353,000. So I thought I'd explain that very large variance. Of course, it's a positive variance. So in July, we had our half-price sale, and when we're comparing to prior year, you'll notice that we're quite above where we were prior year with our revenue in this line. Last year, we did not have our half-price sale in July like we typically do because of construction at the transit center, so that was moved in further into the fiscal year. So that's why we are exceeding prior year by a significant amount, and then also our budget the original year-to-date budget doesn't include projections of that half-price sale, so we're ahead of revenue on that line item. And then I'll talk to you about miscellaneous revenue. There's a footnote on your report explaining it, but I thought I'd just call that out to you. You'll notice the year-to-date budget's $20,000, and we have $652,000 in that. So that's quite a variance. I don't know if I've seen a 3,129% variance on a report. So I wanted to explain that to you, and this boils down to some changes that the budget office made in how they manage the energy cap program. So we used to have that in our budget. They've taken that out, and essentially our base budget did not include that as part of our subsidy when that was the intent. And so they've made that whole for us by adding in $621,500. So this will be a variance throughout our whole year because our subsidy, our general fund subsidy, got a boost. So it's a great variance to have for us. So those are the two things I was going to highlight on revenues. If there's any other questions, though, on the revenues or expenses, I can speak to those before I move on. All right, so we'll move over to parking operations, which is page 4. So in parking, our revenues exceeded expenditures by $475,000. And our year-to-date revenues are sitting at about $1 million, which is a little under budget, 2%, nothing major. And then our year-to-date expenditures are $553,000, exceeding our budget by 1%. So I mentioned to you some nuances in our system that we're still working through. That would be a large contributor to why those variances exist. I'll talk to you a little bit about a couple of lines on the whoops, I guess I hid that slide on accident. So I had a slide for you highlighting rows. The rows I wanted to talk to you about in the parking report, so again, this is in page 4 of your report. The monthly contracts line item, you'll see that our original budget year-to-date where we thought we'd be is $477,000. We're actually at $450,000. But you'll notice also last year, prior year-to-date, was at $500,000. There's two things happening here. Number one is, again, the financial system. There's some differences in how accounting is recording the revenue. So I won't get into all those weeds with you, but essentially we're still kind of cleaning up the process of how revenue is recorded based on an invoice date versus when it's actually collected. So it's just understating some of our revenue there. And then also it comes down to collections. People are sometimes not timely in paying those invoices, and so no cause for concern though on that line item. We have not lost any contracts with any of our monthly riders, or excuse me, parkers, so we don't have any cause for concern on that line. And then events and transient parking, the row right below it under revenues, the budget is $527,000. Our actuals are $473,000, so we do show a negative variance of $55,000, about 10% under budget. But if you do compare to prior fiscal year, you'll notice that we're quite ahead of where we were at last year. We've had some great parking at events going on in our city. So a couple of those I was going to share with you. Some of our larger parkers at events was the Olivia Rodrigo and the Horror Convention in July. We had quite a few parkers at those events. Also the Oklahoma State School Boards Association and the Janet Jackson concert. So those produced some good event riders for our parking system. Overall, we are on track still with our events and transient parking. We have no reason to think we'll have any issues with our budget throughout the year. And then river cruises, I'm just going to hit a couple highlights in river cruises. Their revenues do exceed expenditures by $67,000. The year-to-date revenues are $209,000, and our year-to-date expenditures are $141,000. So looking like everything's pretty on target for our river operations. And then finally, page 7, our streetcar operations. Our expenditures in this scenario actually do exceed our revenues by $164,000. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. Our year-to-date revenues are $1.2 million, exceeding budget by 1%. Our year-to-date expenditures are $1.3 million, exceeding budget by 73%. That's a large number. This is explained again by really the accounting variances and how the Oracle system is recording revenues and expenses. So I'm here to tell you we are not actually over budget by 73% on our expenditures, so you can take a breath. We're doing okay. We just have some recording nuances, and so the expectation is over the next month or two, this should get cleaned up as those issues are being fixed in the financial system. So from looking at it on a manual basis, I've had staff looking deeply into it to make sure our actuals are really on target with our budget. So I'm here to report, really it's just overstating our expenses, so we don't have any cause for concern at this time. So those are my comments for you today on the financial report, and I'm happy to answer any questions on any lines I didn't cover.
Are there any questions or comments for Suzanne?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. That was good. Okay, we're moving on to back to program reports, and we have a second one that we covered the mobility management, and now we're moving to parking services report. Corey?
You continue to save the boring for the last. You're consistent. Good morning, everyone. A couple of things that maintenance has been a task on a few things. We've gotten hit with some bad luck a little bit, or it feels like bad luck. Over at the Century Center garage, we had some drainage pipes collapse. Couple exhaust fans so that people don't choke to death off of car fumes in the lower areas. Few lighting fixtures, and then we underwent the past several months a lot of stairwell repairs where some individuals got in and damaged some drywall, so we had a professional come in, fix the drywall, and then paint the whole area. Looks really good. The staircases when I refer to paint the whole area. Sorry, not the entire garage. Arts District garage, through audits, we found a variety of the emergency exit lights had started to fail. No big deal, but like to stay on top of those things. Sheridan Walker, we had some deterioration in some conduit and the roof lights. Some of them shorted out and had to be replaced. Cox Garage, or Prairie Surf Garage, as we know, that's someday going to get bulldozed. So we've used that garage because of its vast footprint to store a lot of our equipment. We're moving those items to other facilities, and then IT and myself will be going over to make sure that years ago when we when we reconfigured parking's internal network, separate from the city's internet connection and all of that, that Cox has been taken care of properly, and that's not the main hub anymore from a wire standpoint. Over at Santa Fe Station, parking helped out a little bit with some of the move-in. We had some signage installation, some miscellaneous furniture assemble, plumbing, roof repairs. It's always fun to work on a roof that's shared with a train. That's interesting. As Suzanne already reported, our transient hourly daily customers is quite consistent with where we projected it to be from a quantity standpoint. And then event customers, we did have an increase in quantity of events over prior year, August. Nice to be seeing that activity. And then contract parkers is, we're seeing a little bit of ads here and there, ones, twos, no major account ads, but it's nice to see that steady growth. With that, the parking report is done unless you have questions.
Are there any questions or comments? I'll just plug in my two that we've already talked about. One is on the Arts District garage, the east elevator repair is requiring a major part repair that they're having to fabricate. And you said it would be another 2 months before it.
I'm sorry, sir. A couple more weeks.
Weeks, okay.
Couple more weeks.
Well, it's been over a month.
It's been a huge lead time. We were told like 16, 18 weeks.
Yeah. So.
We were on it within a day or two, within a day.
Yeah. Well, that's good. We're getting it repaired, and I'm sorry it's taking so long. The other one is the Sheridan Walker art on the outside is flaking off, and we've had discussions about this, and the artist who did that mural on the outside of the Sheridan Walker garage is moved out of the country. You've tried to locate them, and they're not available to come in and do any repair work. So you're moving forward with the possibility that we will replace that art with other art in another mural possibly in the future.
Correct. Heather's helping us schedule a parking committee for that in the coming weeks. So that'll be one of the items discussed is the mural.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any items from the trustees? Meg? Laura, thank you for sitting in.
You're welcome.
Right.
I appreciate the other trustees, and it was intended that last month would be my last meeting, but
Jason has a family matter to deal with, and I do want to reiterate how important it is for us to have a quorum, because we only do meet once a month, and so getting our business done is really important in such a critical service for our city. So thank you.
Thank you for your service.
You're
all
welcome.
these years.
You're
We
welcome.
appreciate you.
Thank you.
Brent? Okay. Jesse?
Yeah, just one item real quick. So we had the presentation talking about Santa Fe Depot. We've extended an offer for anyone to come by, take a look at it. So directly after this meeting, it's come and go as you please, but encourage anybody to come by, take a look at it. Looks pretty great.
Okay, thank you very much. And you survived your first meeting. Congratulations. And welcome to the...
Oh, I don't even remember it.
Yeah.
It's
Thank
all a
you.
blur.
Yeah,
At that point, we lost our quorum, but we're adjourned now.